A few months later, I was sitting in my house, and I have a big screen in my house, and this was in the house that we had previous to the one we have now. And there's a big screen and a big cutout section of our cabinets, and I'm watching this. Everybody's asleep. I'm watching Fox News is what I'm watching, and in just a moment, it was like the whole television screen switched right before my eyes. Now again, you have to keep in mind, I'm awake. I've never had an open vision like this before. I don't know what this is. I think I'm watching 9/11 unfold again. And so while I'm sitting there, the whole television screen switches. And this news anchor comes on and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, the oddest thing is happening. Normally, hurricanes form over the ocean, over water, and then they come upon on shore." He said, "But there is a hurricane that has formed over America." And while he was talking, it went to a satellite image. I saw literally from north to south, from east to west, the side of a hurricane, a storm that was over America. The eye of the storm was moving right down the center of America. The news anchor said, "This is the oddest storm, this hurricane. This is unbelievable." He's describing this thing, and then he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a correspondent who is on the ground in the eye of the storm." Immediately, the television goes to this correspondent, and like you would see with any other, news report in a hurricane, this man's kind of being beaten and tossed with the wind, and you can see debris just swirling around his body. And he's saying, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is an unusual storm. This isn't like any storm that I've ever reported on." And he reaches down on the ground and he picks up a handful of $1 bills. And he said, "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "this is a storm of dollar bills." Well, when he said that, immediately it came back to the news anchor. And now again, keep in mind, I'm awake. I'm thinking this is actually happening, right? It hasn't dawned on me that this is a vision. I think this is the real deal, and this is actually happening. And so it comes back to the news anchor, and the news anchor says, "Ladies and gentlemen, there's been another tragedy that has hit America. We have just experienced a major earthquake on the New Madrid fault line." And immediately I started seeing pictures of devastation all over the New Madrid fault line. I saw cities that were flooded. I saw cities that were destroyed. I saw people walking around in the streets, stumbling around in the smoke and in the debris. They looked like they were dazed. People were crying out for help. And while I was watching this, division, it was like all of the United States was just split in half. While I was watching this, behind my right ear, I was sitting on the couch, and behind my right ear, I heard a booming voice, which I believe to be the voice of the Lord, that said these words, "They divided my land, now I will divide their land." I knew immediately that God was speaking about Joel chapter 3, where God prophesies through the prophet Joel about the parting of the land of Israel and judgment coming to the nations. And God said, "I will reward you swiftly, quickly for what you've done to my land." And so I felt like this earthquake, and people say, was it a literal earthquake? Was it a spiritual earthquake? Was it a dividing of the nation? I can't say. All I can tell you is what I saw. I can tell you that I saw devastation. I continued to watch the television, and by this time, I'm sitting on the edge of my seat. I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? Do I go wake up my family? Do I call people? How am I going to open the church? What's the church going to do? I'm 1,000, come on, y'all know what I'm talking about. 1,000 thoughts are going through your mind in just a flash. And then all of a sudden, I see more pictures going on television. People are rioting in the streets. I see riots all over America. I see cities on fire and blazing. I see people rioting in the streets, looting buildings, things of that nature. And one of the things that sticks out to me more than anything else in this vision that I've never forgotten is I saw people holding signs, big signs. And on the signs it said, "I want my entitlements." And I knew that this had something to do with the economy. When I saw these signs, "I want my entitlements," immediately I was sucked up from where I was right then, and I was just in a flash, I was sitting in a room in the Middle East. Now, you say, how do you know it was the Middle East? Because I've been to the Middle East several times, and the Middle East has a feel to it. Anybody that's been to Israel or that part of the world knows that the Middle East just has a feel, that Mediterranean feel that no other place in the world has. I knew I was in the Middle East, and I was sitting in a room, and there was a long table, and there were heads of nations around these tables. I can tell you who was there. China was there, India was there, Indonesia was there, Syria was there, Turkey was there, Iran was there, Saudi Arabia was there, Russia was there. I mean, I could just go on and on. Egypt was sitting around the table. All of these nations were sitting around this long table, and they were having a discussion, and the discussion was how to destroy America. And they went around the table in this discussion, and they tossed several ideas. And finally, one of the people stood up, which I could tell you the nation that stood up, but I want to hold that for a later time because the Lord hasn't released me to say this. Only to my church has He released me to share that. But this nation stood up, leader stood up and said, I can tell you how we're going to do it. The American dollar is in trouble. There is nothing holding stability to the American dollar except one thing. He said, here's what it is. All of us have to purchase dollars. It is the world currency. We have to purchase dollars to buy oil. And he said, what we're going to do is we're going to buy and sell oil with a different currency other than the American dollar. And when you take that one thing out of that equation, the American dollar will collapse. They're having this discussion. And I'm sitting here like a third party listening to this. And I'm thinking, what in the world am I hearing? And one guy, they started having a discussion, okay, what currency are we going to use? And they went around the table and nobody could come to an agreement of a currency. And finally, one of them said, I know what we'll do. We can all agree that we will trade oil for gold. Will everybody agree to that? And they said, yes, we will agree to that. And I knew immediately when I heard that, I immediately hit my body. I was sitting back on my couch. I came to. I was awake. I was shaking. I couldn't believe what I'd just seen. I knew God was showing me something that was about to happen. The Lord showed me other things while I was in that about the Middle East. I saw the entire Middle East pushing America out of the Middle East.